To go live, way to go live. Oh, look, we're live. It's always a guessing game when it's gonna happen. I hope everybody is having an absolutely fabulous weekend. Wait, not weekend, it's Thursday. I'm thinking about the weekend already, clearly. Um, but that is what it is. But it is time for lunch with Mal. And I'm just gonna get the texty do thing on here. We'll do it like that. We'll see how that goes. Kind of covering up Miss Marvel, but will survive. I hope that folks have had an excellent week and that you're all jazzed for the weekend. Um, Today's an interesting one for us because we get a hot tub. Jill and I have dreamt of having a hot tub for years, and now we're like finally on the cusp of having one. So that's super exciting. Um, I've got a number of topics to talk about today. One of them is sorry, just looking at some images that got generated by an image generator, and some of them are absolutely hilarious. Um, but hey, Miss Ocampo, how's it going? Thanks. Happy Pride Month to you too. But yeah, so Facebook made some ad changes recently that I'm still investigating, but I thought I would let folks know. And then also because not everybody probably watched my video yesterday, I do want to talk a little bit about the New York AI law that's coming my podcast as well. Oh, nice. Yeah, we'll definitely share that too. I did a podcast a couple weeks ago with Danica and Steph, whose name I something like Brave New Bookshelf. I kept thinking Better Bookshelf. bravenewbookshelf.com/episode dash 79. This that's where you can see one. I'm in that one. I believe we're talking about my tool that I'm building for authors to be able to introspect their books and have like really deep searches done on their books via AI that builds summaries and stuff like that, which is in the works still. Um, it's got a lot of complicated elements to it because anyone who's tried to feed an AI a bunch of books in a series knows it's pretty easy for the AI to start to forget some of the details that you really needed to remember. So that's one of the things I'm working through, and I have a system in place for it. It's just taking a lot of like careful steps to get it all working well and test it with lots of different books and stuff like that. Um, but super handy, I think, for be able to, the idea is to like something you could run on software on hardware I provide or even your own hardware, and then you're not uploading your books to some sort of some corporation systems or anything like that. Hey Dennis, how you doing? So yeah, that's what that I believe that's what that podcast is about. I think we also talked to you about just like how AIs are working, how they're evolving, how big they are, like kinds of connections that they make and stuff like that. Oh, that sounds really fun, Ms. Ocampo. I like that. So yeah, check that out. And then I'm doing a live video with InkersCon this coming weekend because InkersCon is kicking off. And we're doing a live presentation on direct sales ads this weekend too. So lots of fun stuff happening. Plus the hot tub, which we're excited about. Which in theory should be arriving in like 25 minutes. Well, but then the electricians are going to have to hook it all up, and then they're going to have to come and help us get it all set up and show us what to do with it and everything like that. But ridiculously excited to have a hot tub. It was one of the advantages of actually buying like a small house that we could buy for a lot less money. Is we have money to actually do the things around the house in the yard that we really like. Downside is it's a small house. So I do want to talk briefly about the New York AI law that's coming into play. This law applies to advertisers who advertise in New York State. So if you're not running ads, then you don't have to worry about this at all. And if you decide not to run ads in New York State, you don't have to worry about this at all. But basically, what it comes down to is that if you have a synthetic performer in your ad that is not immediately recognizable as a real person, so like let's say for example, you had your video, you had yourself, you had a video of yourself, and you used some sort of software, be it AI or maybe you made like a CGI um, version of yourself because it doesn't just cover generative AI; it covers images made with algorithms, which is like Photoshop touched it kind of thing. If it looks like you, then it's fine because it's a recognizable person. But if it's a sort of a made up person that was synthetically created in some fashion, then there needs to be a disclaimer saying this is a a synthetic performer. In the I actually, you'd have to double check the law specifically. I can't remember if you have to say generative AI. This image was made with generative AI or an algorithm, or if you can just say that contains a synthetic performer. Um, and then that's the third option that Monique has called out here. Is like, I don't live in New York. I don't care. Um, which is to a certain extent my feelings. Although I mean, I run ads for people who might live in New York or live in the States, so I have to be cognizant of that because the I'm not going to be the one on the hook, right? The person whose name is on the page in the account would be the one that's on the hook. Actually, there are carve outs. Like someone could say that they didn't know I was using generative AI in the ads because there are carve outs for like I didn't know that this was being done. Um, of course, you get the fine, then you'd have to fight it in court. And if you live outside the state of New York and they decide to fine you, then they would have to like if you live in the U.S. and outside the state of New York decide to fine you, they'd have to like transfer the judgment to your state by going to court in your state and yada yada yada. Uh, so that's a whole thing as well. That you could people could decide. I don't think like the state of New York doesn't have the resources to go after fining and prosecuting everybody in the world. So obviously they're going to start with people that are doing egregious things, misrepresenting, using generative AI to create deep fakes and stuff like that. So I think if you're a little bit worried about this, like you're not on, you're not in their gun sights on. It comes in effect on Monday. You're not in their gun sights on Monday. I would not think. Um, but so we'll have time to actually kind of see like how they're going to enforce this. There's already constitutional challenges being prepared because it's so far-reaching. It's there's 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 stuff about like laws have to be clearly defined and not too widely open to interpretation. And this law, like I said, it could cover anything. Like if you used a filter on an image, you've now algorithmically altered that image. Does it need to be disclosed then? Like it's so broad. Um, Ignorance is not normally a defense, but in this particular case, there is a carve out. And I think the reason why they do it primarily is like you went to a stock photo website and the stock photo website said these are images that weren't made with AI. You use them, you later discover they were made with AI. Like if you could show that you made an effort not to use AI, but it happened anyway, I think that's kind of what the carve out is for, that there could be a defense around that. So those are kind of your three options: disclose, don't advertise in New York, don't care. one of those three doors. Hawaii also is working on a similar law. Um, so that's coming down the pike too. It's been passed through their Senate. It's on the governor's desk, but it's also set to come into effect in 2077, which apparently is a thing Hawaii does when they want to discuss a law more before they actually roll it out. I suspect they're going to wait and see what happens to the New York law before they go through the effort of rolling out their law. But the other interesting thing is that the less the synthetic performer looks like a human, like if it can be believed to be trying to masquerade it to represent a human that doesn't actually exist, then it's a problem. But if it's a sketch, like you said to AI, for example, you said make me a watercolor image of a woman standing in a field of wildflowers. That doesn't trigger the law because no one thinks that a watercolor image of a woman is a real person. You know, so that's the thing. Does this mean Facebook will stop pushing their enhancements? I strongly doubt it, Rebecca. Um, I would. The interesting thing is, I've encountered a number of scenarios where Facebook turned on AI generated images when that was not something that I wanted it to do. So then, what happens then? And see, that's also where I think that defense would probably work. You're like, I did not turn on these AI generated images. Facebook did that. Of course, you'd have to like prove that it was Facebook and not you, which is problematic. Um, which is why I feel like for some people, like if you're worried about this and you live in the States, just don't advertise in New York State and eventually not in Hawaii. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I think that's going. I think that Facebook. Well, see, here's the thing: from a software developer standpoint, I'll remove Jill's message. You don't need to say that more. From a software developer standpoint, like software is getting ridiculously complex because every single like condition, do this or do that, if this then show that, all has to be coded in by hand, and these conditions all compound. Where like a person made a decision in this one system that set this one condition, and then this other part of the system needs to know about that condition. But if it doesn't know about that condition, it can make it the wrong decision. These are called bugs. When software has bugs, it's because it's just ridiculously complicated, and the cascading effects of a decision in one place affect things somewhere else. And big pieces of software are more complicated than dozens of humans together can understand. Which is why, like, companies are leaning toward using AI to make decisions. And unfortunately, we're in the early growing pains phase of that. But it actually makes a ton of sense from a development standpoint, because there's certain things like, wow, I could write. In some cases, it could be this. I could write effectively 1,000 if then statements, or a way to like classify data so that I could do all this. But then of course, as the data classification changes, like someone decides to identify a piece of information with a different word, and suddenly my entire system breaks that's trying to make these decisions. Whereas an AI could be like, oh, the word luminance and luminescence means the same thing. I can make the same decision based off of that. Um, I mean, or they would say like they probably intend to be used the same way. Like it can make that kind of decision, whereas regular software would just break when it hits that condition. So there's actually like, if we want to go further with what we can do with software, we actually kind of do need to use AI at a certain point, where we are kind of getting toward the end of what humans can do and manage on their own. So, and machine learning and software has, I mean, I was working, the last time I worked in big software was back in 2014, and we were using machine learning at that point for things that we were doing in software, because it was otherwise just too complex for humans to actually like go through all the possible conditions. So, um, I say that to say that, unless you want to go back to 1950, this is kind of where we are now. Um, anyway, for better or for worse, right? And I'm not against having the AI labeling. Actually, this is something that does affect you, Monique. August 2nd, the EU has new AI labeling laws that go into effect that don't care if you are if you're running an ad or not. If you deploy an image on the internet, and it's and I the language they're using this month, June, to sort of finalize some of these things. So some of the stuff isn't written in stone yet, but it looks like if you're basically pushing a product, um, and you use AI, there actually has to be a logo on the image or video saying that it's AI, it needs to be localized to where you are. I think that's what they're proposing. So, like, if you're in Germany, it's KI. If you're in France, it's IA or whatever it might be. Um, and that's not just ads. That's like, just as an author, if you put a picture about your book on the internet and say like, check it out, this is my book, you then, and the fine is like 13 million euros. So, important. I'm not as well versed on that. I've only done just a bit of reading on what they're doing. It's called Article 50, if I remember correctly. I think it's Article 50. So stuff's going down, people. Other countries, Canada and the UK, have no AI regulations planned. The governments of both countries have basically said that anything having to do with AI can be addressed by the already existing deceptive advertising laws that we have. So don't be an asshole and do deceptive advertising. The EU doesn't care about that, because as far as the EU is concerned, their um, law is specifically, because I checked into this, their law is specifically worded around the location of the deployer and the location of the viewer. So if the person deploying the ad resides in the EU, and the viewer resides in the EU, then it falls under the jurisdiction. And I guess one could possibly make arguments about separation, and the business did it, you didn't. Go after the business. But I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how that sort of thing would actually play out in reality. Um, I do know that governments can be pretty tenacious about getting their money, though. Um, so just something to be aware of. And I guess it would depend. Like, if you used a personal account with your name on it, and they're like, well, this is you live in Poland, the account has your name on it, then they might do that. It'll be really interesting to see how that plays out in the EU, because what might happen is that just like everything ends up with an AI flag on it, and then no one cares. It'll become just like, remember the thing where we have to like click accept cookies on every website? We can also thank the EU for that. Does anyone actually give a shit? Does anyone actually think about like what the cookies they're accepting mean? No, we just click the stupid message to get it to go away so we can use the website. I kind of wonder if it'll actually end up being like that. Like, everything's going to say AI, because AI, like, depending on how they write the law, AI is used in making almost everything now anyway. So at a certain point, you're like to label everything AI, and then it loses all meaning. I actually think that's what will end up happening, especially the way the New York law is written. Because that's like it includes algorithms. Like if you use Photoshop, if you use a computer, like right, like if a computer was a part of like this image in any way, shape, or form, then an algorithm was involved. Then that's actually why I think there's why people said there's a constitutional issue with the law because it's too broad. Um, AI disclosure in Kickstarter cover the image, or we'd have to watermark the image itself. Dennis, it depends where you reside. Where do you reside? If you're in the States and you want to comply with the New York law, it only applies to ads, so paid advertising. There's a little bit of squishiness around like whether or not you posting on social media promoting your book also counts as an ad. The current lawyer briefs I've read say that they don't think it would count, that would count. It's only paid advertising that falls under it. There you go, money. Well, then you might be okay. But the problem is actually, the U.S. is actually kind of a disaster because every state is starting to make their own laws, and they're starting to really conflict with one another. So, like, what do you do in the U.S.? The federal government has said they want to they actually consider making laws to bar states from actually making laws about AI, so we don't have a patchwork of laws across 50 states. And in addition, come August, August 7th, most of the major AI image creators may start watermarking their images anyway, because California is going to require it at that point. So Midjourney, ChatGPT, Gemini, all of Adobe Firefly, they're all going to have to watermark their images. It will be an invisible watermark, and then they'll have a tool that you can use to detect the watermark to see if it's an AI image. So that may actually, if that law becomes sort of like the more prevalent one, that might sort of short circuit a lot of things. The US is a bit of a dumpster fire. You're right, Monique. I like Canada and the UK's thing. It's like, don't be an asshole and do deceptive advertising, you know? So anyway, that's kind of where that stands right now. I won't go on anymore. But yesterday's video was a bit longer. I dive into more detail. I have like I talk about the specific laws in the different states and stuff like that. But I think it's definitely worth paying attention to. And even if you don't use AI, it's probably worth being aware of, because, like I said, the New York law doesn't cover just AI. It reaches far beyond AI. It can affect, like, if you have a cover, the cover of your book, if it was made by compositing images together in Photoshop, it falls under the law. It would have to be disclosed, right? And no one knows how they're actually going to like enforce that very ambiguous wording in the law. The other thing that happened recently is that Facebook made a really weird change in mid-May, and it took me a long time to find this one. It was difficult. It doesn't seem to be affecting everyone, but states and the Philippines. Okay, so you would probably want to not run afoul of the New York law. And like I said, like, I don't think like on day one they're going to go after small businesses in other states. So I don't think people need to like rush. I think people living in New York should be pretty aware of what's going on. But I think other folks can kind of like just sort of just keep an eye on it and see how the wind blows. And I'll keep everybody updated too with what's going on. But I want to show you guys what happened with delivery. So I saw some accounts, and it wasn't uniform. It was just some accounts that, and I want to see if I can actually show you one of mine that actually highlights the issue. I can't remember if I have one that does or not. But they stopped showing ads on Android for some people's accounts, and it's not uniform. Okay, this account it didn't stop, but it decreased. The Android exposure decreased significantly. And what I've learned is that Android users seem to convert better, and or iPhone has better anti-tracking stuff, and we just don't. The iPhone clicks just don't track as well through Amazon attribution. But if we look at this particular ad here, we will see that. So the first thing here is Facebook, Android smartphone, then Facebook, Android tablet, and then we have our impressions. So this is May 1st to May 17th, 2,500 Android impressions, 1,800 iPhone impressions, and pretty much nothing happening on Instagram for this particular ad. And if I then flip that from May 18th to June 3rd, so roughly about the same amount of time, we'll actually see. Okay, this one actually didn't change as much as I thought it did. This one actually still has 10,000 on Android and 11,000 on iPhone. But iPad users across the board are getting more ads than they were before. But I've seen some accounts. This one did decrease. Android was like more, and then it went down. So it's not as pronounced. I've seen some. I'll give it that. I've seen some where like the Android clicks just like dried up. Um, so actually, I'm curious if I look at like just a smaller period, what will we see in here? Yeah, so this that's roughly when the shift happened. iPhone started getting more than Android, but I've seen somewhere like the Android almost completely dried up, and those accounts saw a precipitous drop in the number of page reads that they were getting from that. So the way that you see this, let me just try and get this. The window froze briefly. Is you go to breakdown, and then you go down to delivery. Like you can scroll down to platform and device, or you can scroll out. You can just do impression device. That actually might work too. So there we go. So that gives you the device that the ad impression served on. It's a little bit easier to parse. So you can look at your account. If you did see like a decrease toward like around the latter half of May, and you spot that, you might need to possibly remake the ad. I don't have like the solution completely worked out yet because I'm doing some testing on different solutions. One thing you could try doing just for kicks. Oh, I should have caveat. It seems like in the EU that particular metric isn't tracked right automatically. You have to click a little plus for it to start tracking that metric, and it will start tracking it the next day. So there's a couple of accounts I couldn't even see historical data for, and they seem to be ones in the EU. But if you want to change this, you can go all the way down into the placement section, and you go to devices. Oh, that's not it. So sometimes it'll be under devices. You'll have a main option for mobile and desktop, and there'll be another one for like phone type. Other accounts, it'll actually be down to the see more options section, and then there's another devices spot, and then you could just say Android only, and just do Android devices there. So it's going to be something like that. Either in the bottom underneath the show more options thing, or it will be up at the top above like where the platforms are listed. You could try just running the ad on Android and see what you get. But that was like a really weird um, problem that I've I've never seen anything like that happen before. I've never had to dive into like device placements before, because lots of times I'll do breakdowns and all sorts of different things. Be like, okay, when the ad was working, what headline was it using, what text was it using, what image was showing, what placement was getting used the most. I've never done it by device, because they've never done this before. I've always found the issue before I got to device, and this time I was all the way down to device. Um, so it doesn't seem to be account across all accounts. It just seems to be some accounts just dried up how much they're showing to Android. But even this one shifted. Like I said, like before in early May, we were getting, more Android than iPhone, and then late May it shifted. It's more iPhone than Android, so it didn't completely dry up, but it went down a bunch. So it's a weird thing. Um, yeah, and the one thing too, like I kind of buy that, Dennis. It makes sense in some regards, because I think that perhaps iPhone users may be a little more likely to buy in the Apple Store, or maybe they're a little more bougie and don't want to shop on Amazon, or they buy books, they don't read them, and they buy print. I don't know what it is, what's going on exactly there, but I'm not surprised actually now that I've seen this data. I wouldn't have expected there to be such a marked difference, but in some of the accounts, it looks like iPhone users read in KU half as much as Android users do. Like it's not like a 10%, 15% dip. It's like a 50% dip, um, which was shocking, to be honest. So there's that. And I was also, if people are keen, I feel like a lot of people here probably already saw some of my stuff on the new image generation software that I've made, but I'm going to show it anyway because like maybe some people haven't. There's also some cool new stuff coming in ye old image generation software that I've put together that people might enjoy. So let me share my screen to show that. Oh, that's awesome, Jill. That's great that we're putting those ones up. Happy. All right. Remove, stop screen sharing, start screen sharing. So I decided to make my own image generation software, basically recreating Midjourney in effect, and possibly having a bunch of functionality that Canva has that they charge money for as well. Um, there, I'll embigger that. So what it is I have it at a site right now called Outpost AI Studio. Um, you can go there and sign up. But I also have a separate school group. So if you go to school and you go search for your own AI image studio, you can get into my school. And then there's actually an invite code that gets you in faster. I don't have to approve your account because I've already approved you coming into school. And you get a little bit more free image generation and stuff like that too. So the system basically works like Midjourney. You have a prompt. Oops, that's not the prompt. That's the thing to upload an image. You have a prompt that you can put in. You can also have the system enhance the prompt, so it'll actually like add in lighting and angles and POV and all sorts of things like that. And then I was doing some testing with trying to make like attractive blonde men in like a gentleman's club thing. Um, and I discovered it's actually hard for AI to do an untied tie. AI really wants to keep the tie tied and undo the shirt underneath it. So I was doing somewhere I was just like removing the tie. And this poor guy is wearing half his suit jacket, unfortunately. That's okay. I could just edit this because I built edit functionality into this site. It takes a little bit to load the image, and then I could actually just go and like edit away his suit jacket, and it'll then redraw it. And I'll tell it to not adhere to the original quite as much, which will allow it to be a little more flexible, and it'll go off and do that. So it's pretty cool. It has animate functionality, and I'm also testing a new model that does like really amazing um, skin texture, like shockingly good skin texture. Although this one's really good too. Like these guys, their skin looks decent, right? Like we've got like actually believable crinkles and wrinkles in their skin. But on my local dev environment where the magic happens first, all right, so there's video that we're rocking here. Let me go down to like this one and open a new tab and zoom in a bit. But like, actually, this one's a little bit smoothed out. But like the eyebrows are actually like eyebrows, you know? There's imperfections in the skin, like a little bit of rosacea across the nose, like the way humans look. Um, and then also like people with like actual like texture to their skin and stuff like that. So super cool stuff. This is a new model that I don't have out on the public site yet, but I'm getting there. And the next thing I'm actually working on in concert with this is the ability to even do more detailed editing. I was coding it right before it was time for lunch with Mal, where it'll break the image apart into layers, and then you can move the layers around. You could completely redraw one particular layer. You could break a layer into sub layers, which is like advanced Canva functionality. I'm pretty sure that Canva is actually using the same model behind the scenes to do that. Although when you do layers on Canva, what it draws in behind doesn't actually look that good. So we'll see. So lots of different like skin tones and textures and stuff like that I've been playing with. I've been testing different things to see how they look. Some of them look great. Some of them look terrible. So a lot of kind of what you get if you use my system comes after me doing a bunch of work to fine tune things. I want to find one particular image that just is incredible when it comes to skin textures and stuff like that. Um, I just ran through batches and batches of images. That was me trying to see if it could do latex textures, because that's one of my tests. Can it actually do like can it understand certain words to do what you want? Because that's one of these all image AI image systems come with what's called a text encoder, and it takes your words and it converts it into instructions for the image model, because the image model doesn't speak language. The image model speaks like patterns and vectors and stuff like that. So there's a translation layer that goes from us talking and giving a text to the image model, and the vocabulary of that translator matters too. So I've been experimenting with different ones of those. But like this sort of thing is just incredible. Like the eyebrows, skin textures, hair, and stuff like that, you know, that we can get. And this is actually something that people could actually, if you have like a relatively decent machine with like a particular there's certain video cards you have to have in the machine to do this kind of work, that you can do on machines like that. The machine I'm doing this work on right now has a video card from 2022, and the rest of the machine is from like 2018. So it's not new hardware that's able to do this. And I'm a really big believer that for us to do well with AI in the future, people need to control their own use of AI and not outsource everything to corporations. So that's part of why I'm building this. And people can be able to run this on their own machines if your machine is suitably powerful enough. Super cool thing that just dropped yesterday along those lines is that NVIDIA, which is the company that makes most of the AI hardware used on the planet, they're the most valuable company on the planet now, is releasing a new chipset that will allow like consumer laptops to do this level of AI work, and better actually. They'd be able to do even more than I'm able to do on the hardware that I have right now. So that stuff, so those kinds of systems are going to start dropping like this year, and they've also started releasing. Right now they're around like $4,000 to $5,000 for like actual AI supercomputers that you can just run on your desk. They're like shockingly small and cute. They're like this big. These little AI supercomputers, and you could use them for doing everything. All right on your own desk, all right in your house, not sharing your data with anybody else. Oh, nice. Yeah, you totally could. And one of the things I'm doing in my school as well is I want to help people with whatever sort of thing that they want to do. So you don't have to run it on your own machine. You can continue to use my free website. I'm giving everybody 100 image generations a month. And to be honest, if people need more, I'll just give them more. But in addition, I've got a classroom on can you DIY. So first I walk through how you can find out if your current computer can do it. I have this little script, you just copy and paste it into a PowerShell window. It'll give you a report and tell you if your computer can run the software. And if you can't, I actually have like this little shopping video where I describe the kind of computers that you would need to do this. And there's like computers online for $1,000 that can do this work. So all of that. And then I've got one too on improving prompts and becoming a prompt master. I've done the first 3 modules, and then there'll be more. And then there's going to be the one I'm going to be rolling out today on how to actually roll this on your own hardware. And the wild thing too is like every image you see in here is an image I made with my software, actually starting with a picture of me as a starting point. And depending on the individual picture, it looks more or less with like me as I went on. I did more and more things with it, but it's sort of a cool thing that I threw together. So that's that. I hope people try it out. I want people to have like more control. And the cool thing too is like if you drop if you're just willing to spend a little bit more money and you dropped like $2,000, $2,500 on like a desktop computer that has like a really good graphics card in it, your ability to do more and more things with your own hardware, keeping your data to yourself and whatnot, I think will actually end up being like really impressive. And you can even do things like run software like anything LLM and do all sorts of AI work on your own computer. And the really cool thing too is that a lot of these AI models, like the ones I'm using, they're released under what's called the Apache 2.0 license, which means they're free. You can modify them and you can use them for commercial stuff, and you don't have to pay anyone any money. Even Google just yesterday dropped Gemini 4, and they dropped a 12 billion parameter version, which is a pretty small AI model that you can run on lots of consumer hardware, and it is fast and it is very capable. So you could have like anything LLM running on your computer, and you can say like, hey, check my Gmail every 15 minutes and put in calendar events for tasks I need to do. You could also even have it make notes from your meetings and stuff like that on your computer, not using anyone else's software, so that you have the notes yourself. Your meeting content didn't run through someone else's AI. All super freaking cool stuff that you could do. And I'm going to be showing you how to do it yourself on your own hardware, because I think that's just the shizzle. So anyway, I think I've talked about everything I want to talk about. We talked about how Facebook has decided that Android is stupid and not to show as many ads to it. We'll see where that goes. Like I said, I'm doing a bunch of testing. I should have some pretty good results next week as to whether or not it works just to turn off iPhone. Will that force Facebook to show on Android? Is it a transient thing? Trying to figure out what's going on there. Do they actually convert better if we exclusively just run ads to them? A bunch of other things like that. And then my software, it's improving more and more all the time. I'm rolling out new updates to the website people can use. And you can generate video, you can generate images, 100 of them for free per month. And new features are coming all the time, like this edit thing that I'm working on now that's going to be sick. And I'm putting together lots of how-to videos too. And a lot of what I'm talking about too, my how-to videos will also apply to other stuff too, like other image generation tools. And then I mentioned that the school is free. If you want to run it yourself and get me to help you set up it on your own computer, then you'd have to pay for that classroom. But everything else is just free. You just sign up for free and have at it. So so awesome, Monique. Great. That makes sense. Yes, you don't want to forget once the weekend comes. So yeah, and New York is dumb. I'm not dumb for trying to regulate AI. I don't have an issue with people trying to regulate AI. They're dumb for having a law that like no one understands how far it reaches, and it's super annoying. Um, and you might also hear actually people talking about California having a law about this sort of thing. California, Colorado, Utah, and Washington State all have laws um, with varying wording that puts the onus on the people generating the AI image to watermark the images. And that might immediately make you say, like, well, Mal, you're making software to generate AI images. Do we have to worry about watermarking the image so it's identifiable as AI? And we don't, because all of those laws are only targeted at larger companies. If you make less than, I think, 100,000 images a month or something like that, there's varying rules in varying states, but it's all like ridiculously high numbers. Then you don't have to do it because in a decent way, they're not trying to put a massive onus on small businesses to have to do stuff like this. Um, so if you do hear people talking about that, and they're like, "Oh, well, the California law is coming, just you look out," it actually doesn't affect end users at all. It only affects large companies making AI images and stuff like that. So Midjourney, ChatGPT, stuff like that. Um, so yeah. All right. Well, the hot tub people have not yet come, and I am sad. They were supposed to be here at 10:30, and it's 10:38. How dare they? Um, actually, you know what? They probably look at that. The guy texted me. Oh, cool. All right. They messaged me. They're still coming. Hooray! Hot tub. Anyway, I'm gonna jet. I hope you guys all have a fabulous weekend. Feel free to sign up to my school. Jill's got the link right here that you can get in on. Yes, we've wanted a hot tub for like 1,000 years at this point, Monique. We finally managed to get one. We're really excited. But yeah, if you sign up for my school, like I said, it's free. I'm doing a bunch of stuff on how to prompt AI better to get more what you want out of it. A lot of demos on how to do cool things with AI image generators, where you can like dog food the same image through multiple times to get it to do edits and also just straight up edit the image. Lots of cool things, and that's all free. And then if you want to get into the DIY thing and run it on your own system, that's the part I'm going to charge for, because I'm going to offer support and help you with getting things working and making changes and all sorts of cool stuff like that. Yeah, Tim, that actually makes a decent amount of sense. Jill and I, whenever we go to an Airbnb, we kind of live in the hot tub, and we're after a number of years of doing that, we're pretty sure that we'll actually make good use of one for ourselves. It's not just a vacation thing; like we'll be in the hot tub a lot. Plus, we also used to have a pool when we lived in Boston, so we know that we're, especially Jill is a pool person who will make good use of it. But I totally get wanting to make sure before you commit to the price, because they're not cheap. All right, I'm heading out. I'll see you guys later. Have a fabulous weekend, and I will let you all know how the Android stuff goes next week. So stay tuned. All right, have a good one. And I'm so sad, Monique, but I'm glad that you're not in Florida anymore as well.